A god is a reflection of his believer. I want to explain this from both my point of view and how it relates to the believer. You may notice that a religious person and his or her god tend to be in agreement, or the god is at least a projection of the believer's highest ideals they aspire to, or lowest as the case may be. Whatever a person thinks or feels, regardless of how they came to think or feel that way, is reflected in the god. It is of course reflected in the parts of the holy text the believer will emphasize. For example, let's take a typical Christian from a Western country. He has the usual values you would expect in a human unaltered by prior conditioning of propaganda, mostly those stemming from the instincts of a member of a social species getting along in a group. There may be a few things here and there that are altered from religious indoctrination, but he was not raised in a strict religious way at all. This typical guy just cherry-picks the nice verses from the Bible. This is confirmation bias. It confirms what he thinks. As a religious person, he gets in touch with his God by searching within. He does not expect to hear an answer to his prayers, not literally. He expects to get a feeling about it from inside. So how he has been conditioned to feel about something will have a lot to do with what he and his God decide to do. It's the same way with Muslims. There are plenty of nice, peaceful verses in the Quran, so moderate Muslims from Western countries will likely gravitate to those and ignore the other stuff. He also agrees with his God and gets his guidance from within. Now let's suppose there is plenty of propaganda used to bring up a child. The child will be brainwashed to believe anything. Maybe he is your typical nationalist, bigoted hillbilly that wants to insert his religion into law. He, of course, hates gays, Hispanic immigrants, and atheists. He finds Bible verses to justify this. His God, too, agrees with him. He can feel it from within that his God wants him to do these things. Same thing with a Muslim in a Middle Eastern country, dirt poor and uneducated by anything but propaganda and religion. He learns to hate, and he can find plenty of verses in the Quran to justify these things, of course ignoring the contrary ones due to confirmation bias. He can also use the Quran to show him literally how to act out his hate. He has like-minded preachers who can reinforce that as well. He relishes killing infidels in the name of his God, a God who of course agrees with him and wants him to do that. Due to the time religious texts were typically written in, you can find all sorts of barbaric stuff in there. Some people use this to make the world a much worse place. It is these things that I have against religion. I don't have anything against the believers, though. I only have something against the believers doing these things that are harmful to society as a whole, much like I do with anyone regardless of belief or lack thereof. Man created God in his image. This God is the personification of the ideals he aims for, be they good, bad, or indifferent.